play drums correctly requires not only patience, but a good teacher. The student needs guidance in order to be able to play the various required rudiments, their application to all types of music, and the ability to read music. I believe in reaching the student's brain and let his brain dictate to his hands. The brain and hands have to coordinate as a single unit in order to attain perfection. I prefer teaching the instrument and let the student select his own development as far as technique and style is concerned. I don't teach style. Style is up to the individual. And now, Louie, if you will help me, we will demonstrate how we place the stick in the hands for the match grip. You turn your palm downward, you crook the middle finger, and the stick is placed in the crook of the middle finger, which is actually the first joint. You bring the forefinger, which is the index finger, and the thumb toward the stick so that the stick touches between the first and second joint of the index finger. The thumb, meanwhile, is facing the index finger, and half of the ball of the thumb touches the stick. And now you have a three-fingered grip with a very narrow fulcrum or balance point. The narrower the fulcrum or balance point, the better the stick will rebound. Now, as far as the distance from the butt end, do you know where to hold that stick, or how would you hold the stick from the butt end as to where the proper balance would be?
I think you taught me this many, many years ago, Murray.
Yeah.
Where the balance has to do with when you have that middle finger and you feel the bounce coming from this position onto the head.
All right, let's try it.
So if I'm doing this and the bounce,
all right, now just to demonstrate a little bit better than that so that everyone understands, try holding it up farther and see what happens. Now try that. Doesn't do as well. So it isn't because some teacher says this is where you hold it. Try and hold it way in the farther back.
Right. This feels the most comfortable because the biggest portion of the stick is on this end, allowing the stick to rebound naturally.
That's right.
So
that's right. So in other words, that position will develop on every stick that you get and every weight that you get. So you have to first feel the balance, where it is. And it varies with every stick. But you can treat it similarly to, or would say, a seesaw. See, you've never seen a seesaw with a very wide fulcrum. It always has a very narrow fulcrum, or balance point. And that's what makes the stick rebound better.
So we feel the different weight because some of the drummers in the parade, the military style of playing, they have the heavier sticks, so they have to feel that grip.
That's
also
right.
The fulcrum.
That's right. All right. Now, we start by that crook of the finger, the stick is in the crook, and we make a tap by merely bending the wrist forward. Try that. Now, do you notice when you bend it forward, it activates the upward motion of the forearm? You see, as you go to bend it forward. So let's follow that up. And as we get to the top of the stroke, now try it, and go on up with your arm. And as you get to the top of the stroke, now hold it there, and you see now the stick is pointing toward the ceiling and is completely away from your forearm, from your palm. You see?
Right.
Now you cock your wrist as you decide how much thrust you're going to need to come down. And you decide how much thrust, so consequently the wrist comes back even a little farther. Right. And as you come down, that's right, your middle finger also adds its own amount of thrust. And this is how you make your blow, and as the middle finger comes to the palm. That's right. That's right. That's the idea. That's right.
Now, Murray, what about the other fingers here?
The other fingers have nothing whatsoever to do with it. It's permissible to use the first joint of the fourth finger if you feel that you're going to play very, very loudly, so it may add, but actually it hinders the balance point to some extent. Because the wider the balance point, the more harm you do to the rebound of the stick.
Right.
But it can be used, and the fingers can be counted starting with the thumb as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's an easier way of describing these fingers. That's right. Now, the middle finger is constantly on the stick.
Never leaves the stick.
Never leaves it.
Right.
And the action of your wrist and the finger dictate as to what happens to that stick. And as you notice, as you bend your wrist, the stick is inclined to move away from your palm. And as you come down and cock your wrist, it's inclined to move toward your palm.
So
That's right. That's the idea. That's right. That's right.
it's really a natural way
That's right.
to play. The muscles react normally.
So you go up loose and you
Naturally.
come down tight, you see. Now, as to the left hand, the stick is held exactly the same way as the right hand.
For the match grip.
Sure, that's for the match grip.
Right.
No different at all.
So we have this position.
That's
Which
right.
is really prominent with percussion players because of the timpani, mallets,
Right.
and a lot
That's
of
right.
drummers are playing this method now.
Well, it's more practical for
Practical for
many other things. A lot of them like to play the old-fashioned grip or the so-called French grip, which is fine. In the French grip, the right hand is still the same,
Right.
and the left hand undergoes a change. The stick is now placed between the thumb and the index finger, with the first joint of the index finger resting on top of the stick so that it can squeeze toward the thumb. The stick also rests on top of the fourth finger between the first and the second joint. And this is your traditional or French grip with, again, 3 fingers. And you will note that as you pull with your index finger, it also presses the stick against the fourth finger.
Now, one question here, Murray.
Yeah.
In that thumb position, is that allowed to, like, make contact with that index finger?
It can.
It can, as long
Yes.
as there's no pressure there.
No, because the index finger pulls toward the thumb rather than the thumb pushing toward the index finger.
In other words, the index finger is the guide.
The
that guides
index
stick.
finger is the guide. The index finger actually does the same thing that the third finger does in the right hand.
This finger.
It merely replaces the middle finger.
And stays on the stick constantly.
Yeah, that's right. So middle finger has nothing whatsoever to do with anything. So actually, the grip remains primarily between the index finger and the fourth finger, and it pulls against the thumb. And the action is from left to right, this way in your left hand.
So I'm on the loose to tight, or the squeeze and release. That's this.
Now, but you've got to cock your wrist more. No, I'm talking about upward. You see? That's right. That's right. So you can make your little tap and then cock your wrist and come down. That's right. I'll explain that. That's right. Now, we're going the wrong way. I'll follow through with that when I explain the up and down stroke. Because you see, when we make an up and down stroke, we're going up and then we rest coming down. We don't rest holding up in the air. It's down. All right, so much for that. Now, so that's your French grip. Just uses this twist of the wrist, turn of the wrist. But you see, it looks like the side view, and that's why it looks so different. But the bend of the wrist creates the same situation. If we turn the hand over, you would be bending the wrist exactly the same way that you bend the right hand.
Right.
You see, only you bend toward the right hand, so it looks different, but you're just looking at a side view. The muscles work the same way. That's right. No, the release is on that little tap as you go up. It isn't as you come down. That's right. That's where you rest. You rest here. It's as though I raise my leg. When I raise my leg, I don't hold it up in the air and then come down. I go up and I hold it and come down. This is where I rest after I land, not when I'm up in the air. So it's always up, down, up, down. And the release as you go up, you see releases here. Now I'll explain that a little bit in more detail when we get to the so-called up and down stroke. Right now we have 7 basic fundamental strokes. We have a single stroke, we have a double stroke, we have a flam, we have a wrist stroke, we have a rebound, we have an upstroke, and we have a downstroke. I must place particular emphasis on the upstroke because it's the only means we have of releasing whatever tension we build up on the downstroke. And the upstroke is made by starting it from a low position and just bending the wrist slightly. Try that one. Just bend the wrist. Now let it come in contact with the drum. That's right. And hold it up above. Hold it there. Now again, you see, as we get up to the top of the stroke, the stick is already away from the palm and it's pointing toward the ceiling. And we cock the wrist again to determine how much thrust we have to add to the stroke. And then as we come down, the middle finger also adds its own amount of thrust as it comes toward the palm. So it's release, tight, loose, tight. Now try that. Right. So you see, the release is merely the fact that you're not trying to strike the drum. It's the fact that you can't avoid it. Because the minute you bend your wrist, if you're that low, it's going to make its little tap. And the minute this bends, it releases all the tension in your forearm. So you play loose, tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, which also is, again, squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release. See how that begins to work? You want to try a couple of those?
All right.
That's right. Now hold it a minute. Now cock your wrist more as you go up, because you see your only thrust comes from the rate of speed at which you turn your wrist. No, you see, you're raising your arm and you're pointing downward. Turn. That's right. That's where all the horsepower is. That's right. See, that's where the horsepower is. From this thrust here, not here. Because all this does is make you raise your arm and poke your elbow out.
Wasted motion.
That's right. So it's here. You're practically looking at your open palm as you make your blow. See? So it doesn't require a big bend to release. Tiny little bend. That's right. Good.
Okay.
And now, Lou, let's demonstrate some single strokes. That's great. Now try some double strokes. I'd like to hear a couple of more of those crescendo rolls, right from scratch. Now it sounds great. Well, you want to get bold? Let's try some 3 strokes at a clip. How about a few flames?
Okay.
Now close your flames. Slow them up. It's better start a little slower. Now close it up so that it doesn't sound patum. Make it sound plum, plum, plum. Use an upstroke on your left hand.
Okay.
Just release it. See?
Count that again.
All right. Okay, so actually, all that you're doing is you're making an up and a downstroke.
Right.
That's all that's happening in either hand. You want to try a few drags?
Okay.
Or roughs? Increase your speed now. Faster yet. Now here, all you're doing is an up and down stroke, and you're allowing the two beats to rebound.
Right.
You can understand?
Right.
It's all one and the same idea. Oh, how about some four-stroke roughs? Now you can have a party going from, if you want to go from two wrist strokes and ultimately work them into two rebounds and then increase your rebounds into a roll. Go ahead.
Okay. In other words, mix up what I've been doing.
Right.
Going to flams.
Fine. Well, that's about as far as we can go until we get into some continuity. You want to try that?
Okay.
Okay. Try a rough, which consists of just a rebound in one hand and a wrist stroke in the opposite hand. Just sounds drum, 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 drum. Try that.
Alternate it or just on one
No,
side?
just one way.
One side.
Increase your speed now. All right. Now, if you slow down the rebound in your left hand and you time your right hand earlier so that it meets the second beat of the rebound, you will now have the thumb, the thumb, the thumb. Try that. And play that from hand to hand. Okay, so you're still playing an up and a down stroke. You notice that the hands work the same way. They release going up, and they're tight coming down. Now, that is called a flam accent number 2, the stroke you just played. Now, we're in 6/8 time. Now, if you took the same 3 strokes, but start with the flam, and you put it in 2/4 time, we would have tlapa, 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 tlapa. Try that. Increase your speed and go faster. All right, now you have a flam tap.
Right.
Now let's go back to the 6/8 and go into the flam accent number 2 just one way. Da-tlum, 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 da-tlum. Try that. Now, if you play the same thing and just add one additional beat or a rebound in your right hand, it'll sound da-tlapa, da-tlapa, da-tlapa. Try that. And that's called a Swiss triplet. That's right. So everything I'm talking about can be done either way, one way or the other way. Now let's go into an alternate of that Swiss triplet, which would be the flam accent number 1. Now just play a number 2 one way, da-tlum, and an upstroke in the opposite hand. Da-tlum. No, an upstroke. Da-tlum, up. No, but you're already raising that. Well, you make the upstroke. No. Da-tlum, and keep it down here, and then go up. Up. Yeah. No. Play the stroke. Da-tlum, up. But you haven't made a stroke. Make it. That's right.
I see.
Try that again. Now, no, just hold it. Do the same thing. Now hold that. Now you're in position to play the same thing in the opposite hand. Da-tlop, boom. No, you play the downstroke, an upstroke. Da-tlop, boom. Up. That's right. Now you're in position to alternate it.
Now I'm playing a flam accent now?
You're playing a flam accent number 1. Da-tloppa, 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 da-tloppa. So you see, you can derive all of these strokes. If proper continuity is used, it makes the whole thing much simpler because one stroke leads you into the next stroke. So they don't get anywhere near as complicated as you would imagine. And it's a much simpler way. You've seen how long did it take us to explain that? Very few minutes. And you begin to understand what's going on. Very simple. You know, there's one thing that I've always marveled about. The average legitimate drummer plays a beautiful open roll, plays the worst closed roll that I've ever heard, because they're never taught to play a closed roll. He plays beautiful closed rolls, and I can't get him to play an open roll.
Oh, he can do it.
Play an open roll without crushing him.
Without crushing it. Like that?
Yeah, but I want it more open than that.
More open.
That's what I'm talking about. Where you get a very even open roll without the third beat added in.
Yeah. And then be able to still. And now, Murray, I'd like to demonstrate on the drum set all these wonderful things that you gave me, the basic training, the wonderful teachings that you've done for me for so many years. I'd like to show our audience some of that technique on the drum set.
I'd love to hear it. Sure. By all means.
type of player that I am today, I think, to a large degree, has to do with some of the things that I learned from Murray. And primarily, I think what Murray did for me was him teaching me about the up and the downstroke. And what he got me to do was to learn how to get this motion in my playing, just like, you know, when you're waving your hand, like so. And it's hard to describe. I'd sort of gotten into a habit before I went to study with him. I sort of got in a habit of keeping my wrists very stiff because I was coming out of a type of technique where everything was played where the forearm stayed still and all of your strokes were made in this area like this. Everything was up and down, and there was no motion in your wrist where you would break your wrist at any time. So it was a wonderful technique that I learned, and at the time, this was in the early 70s, really helped me a lot because it helped me a lot with finger control. And but it was also a type of technique that to me had a lot of tension in it. Even though you were releasing a certain amount of tension, to me I found that I had an awful lot of tension in my hands, more than I wanted after a period of years. And what Murray helped me to do was to relax even more, because to me relaxation is a very, very big part of this instrument. And, you know, of course, any instrument, but especially the drums, because, I mean, you have all of your limbs involved, and it's incredible amount of things that are happening when you're playing a tune, and your mind is processing all this information and making four limbs move, And so you really have to be really, really relaxed. But I really don't, I don't think a lot about technique when I play. I'm aware of what my hands and feet are doing, but really, my technique, I only have taken it to a level where I feel it serves what I do. And the reason that I studied with Murray, I went back and sort of started at square one. He took me all the way down to the bottom. He says, my friend, you're in bad shape, he tells me. So we started all over. I mean, I went through Podemsky, I went through the entire stick control book, I went through all the rudiments, and he taught me all about the up and down stroke. He taught me about rebound strokes, the difference between rebound and wrist strokes, and all these things really, really helped me to relax even more on the instrument, and gave me a certain, I guess you could, just kept me from, got me out of being so stiff. I just felt, kind of released from a lot of the tension and things that had been building up. Because really, I remember a few years ago, it was right after Christmas time, and I was heading out to do some drum clinics. And right after Christmas, I remember I was rehearsing for these clinics, and I remember experiencing in my elbows right here, both my elbows, kind of just a tightness that I'd never really, experienced before. And I practiced for a couple of weeks, and I noticed that it was getting tighter. It was right here in the center of my elbow on both arms. And as I got closer and closer to going out, my arms started to feel tighter and tighter. And by the time I had come back from a week worth of clinics, I couldn't even hold on to a briefcase or, open the a door, put any pressure on like a doorknob without just excruciating pain in both elbows. So I went to, a sports medicine guy, and, and he tells me, well, you have tendinitis. And this is something that really, really took me by surprise, because I really thought that I was playing relaxed. And it just really showed me that you have to be very aware of how much you relax when you play. Because if you don't, then the next step is tendinitis. And that only comes is just because it's just a buildup of tension in a certain area, right? And it pretty soon there's just so much stress on it that it leads to, you know, all sorts of problems. And, you know, of course, you know, there's always those stories about a lot of people that you may know who have been unable to play after a certain while, or at least had to take a break from playing because, you know, of the pain that they're experiencing from things like that. So good technique, I think, is really a must. And, you know, someone like Murray, who is just a master at what he does, he has a very, very simple way of teaching. There's no frills about it at all. I remember one time I was doing a stick control exercise, or no, it was a series of exercises he had given me, and I don't remember exactly how it was that this all developed, but I brought in the exercises put together in a way that he told me, that he didn't tell me to do it. And as I started doing this, he stopped me and he says, you know, this is not really how I do things. And I'm just paraphrasing, you know, paraphrasing here. He says, this is not how I do things. No frills here. You know, you just play the exercises and you'll see the benefit in this if you stay in it. And in the time that I studied with him, I'm trying to remember, I think I was with him for about a year and a half, real seriously for about a year and a half. And I really made an effort to really practice his things every day without fail. And that was where I learned also about when you practice, you don't need to practice for, you know, 10 hours. If you can concentrate and practice for an hour and a half, you can get just as much done. And I was always telling people about that, but I never really saw it as a reality until I started working Murray's stuff. And it was a wonderful routine. We'd have stick control, you know, every day. We'd go take a third of all of the rudiments. I had them broken up into groups and very, very organized. So every third day, I was going through all the rudiments. And then I had certain stick control exercises. I had wrist strokes and rebounds, the things I was telling you about, and a real routine. That routine got me so that I could really relax and enjoy myself when I was playing again. And really, really great. Murray, I'll love you forever for this. And so, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. To me, if you have enough technique to express yourself musically, that's all that you need. And certainly good hand technique helps to take all the raw edges off of what you do and really shape what you do, into something that, is, what's the right word? Just really shape it into something, really beautiful. I mean, this is art that we do, and you want to make it as perfect and as beautiful as you can, but still, have it be a musical thing and not sterile or technical. We don't want it to be some sort of mathematical exercise that we do here. We want to express ourselves musically, and the more technique you have, the more service that does to kind of what you are all about, musically. Your technique should serve the musician that you are.
In the very first part of the video, Murray explained some of the important movements of drumming, but we never got a chance to complete it. So today we're going to get into the squeeze and release system of the finger style playing. First of all, to reiterate, we got into the left hand position, which I'd like to explain a little more again thoroughly. The left hand position is this. With the first finger, the index finger is looped over the stick, the thumb is away from the first finger, and of course the third and fourth fingers just act as rebounding fingers. But the control is with the index finger, so you have this position for the left hand. In the right hand, the fulcrum is, in both cases, is 1/3 from the butt end of the stick. And the second finger here is the means of direction. Now, we brought this up with the very first lesson in this video with Murray Spivack, but this is something you can always work on. But this is the normal position for the regular conventional way of playing with the left hand and the right hand. Now, if you're going to play match grip, of course, you just match with the left hand. You do the same thing as you would with the right hand. So you have this position when you're playing match grip. Now, conventional grip, the squeeze and release is used only for accents. And now we know in ordinary playing, when we're doing this, normal playing, no accents, regular hand positions. Now, if we want to accent, we naturally raise the stick a little higher. So this way, there's an accent, there's an accent, there's an accent, there's an accent. Now, with the squeeze and release, we eliminate all the extra motion. And here's how we do it. Now, with the right hand, it's very easy because you have a straight position here, and it's almost like a whip effect. You do this. It's always a blow, but the stick comes back off the head, so you have a clean sound. Now, if you're doing this, match grip, then you do exactly the same thing as what you did with the right hand. So you're doing this. So the control is there. Now, if we want to squeeze and release with the left hand with a conventional grip, here's where we really have to learn. Now, if you notice, I'm going to go into the release position. Notice that the left arm does not move at all, but the wrist bends to the right, like that. Now, there's the normal position. That wrist bends to the right, and as I'm bending that wrist, you'll notice that the fingers stretch out close to the bead of the stick. And at no time do the fingers leave the stick. They're on the stick continually. So here's the normal position. Now we're ready to release. Now, when we squeeze, you make the beat and squeeze at the same time. So you do this. Now you notice when we come back to that position, we're back in the normal position. So once again, we're going to play like we do this. That's the release. That's the squeeze. Release, squeeze, release, squeeze. So when you accent then, you don't have to worry about too much of wasted motion, but you do it this way. So by doing that, you get a much more relaxed position. You get the ultimate in sound, and you never get tired. You're not doing this. You're not doing too much of this, but you've got all the playing ability here, and everything is loose. Everything is relaxed. And your technique gets much better and better and better as time goes by. Now, it's very important to know when you're taking drum lessons, you're taught to make a stroke, which is this, upstroke and downstroke. That's in rudimental style of playing, which is perfectly all right. A tap is not using this kind of motion, arm motion, but using the wrist. So you're doing this. So it's important to know that when you're playing rolls, as a kid, when I took my lessons, they told me to play a 5-stroke roll, and I did that. He said, no, a 5-stroke roll. Well, a 5-stroke roll to me is a bounce, bounce, and a tap. I call it a number 5 roll. So you can't teach a student this is a stroke and this is a tap. And then you say a 5-stroke roll, so I call it the number 5 roll, 2 bounce tap roll. Let me play a few things so you get an idea how the left hand works and the right hand also, but especially the left hand when you're playing conventional grip. If we want to use just fingers only, we do that when we're playing pianissimo. Now you'll notice here, now that's all fingers. This finger in the left hand, the index finger, and the second finger in the right hand. You can grab a hold of my wrists here while I'm playing, and I'll still be able to do that. There's no motion with the wrist or arms. It's all fingers. For pianissimo playing. Now we can bring it up to MF, mezzo forte, by using the fingers and the wrists. And then fingers, wrists, and arms. So there you have fortissimo, pianissimo, all by using the fingers in conjunction with the wrist and arm, fingers alone, or fingers and wrist, fingers, wrist, and arm. And at all times, by using the fingers all the time, you take all that muscular load off the hands and the arms and the wrists. And you can play easy, you can play hard, you can play soft, and you never get tired. To reiterate with the left hand again, make sure that the arm, there's no motion with the arm, straight, and you bend that wrist to the right, like this. Normal position, here we are. Bend to the right for the release. The fingers stretch down toward the bead of the stick. Now to make the squeeze, we come back to the normal position exactly the same time you make the blow. So it's like this. The squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release. So you have to assume this position, come down this way to the bend of the right, because if you don't, if you start this way, and then you have to squeeze, you're going to do that, and that's not normal. That's really bad. So we have to assume this position, bending the wrist to the right for the release, and come back for the squeeze. Pum, pum, pum. There's the motion right there. You can see that's a snap effect, and it worked. You can get all kind of and the right hand, pum, 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 pum. Okay, to make sure that these positions are clear, I want to do the right hand first, then the left hand, and very slow motion so you understand and you can visually see the hand positions and what's happening with the fingers, wrist, and arm, so forth. So here's the right hand, squeeze and release. Okay, now we'll demonstrate the left hand where we really utilize the squeeze and release in very slow motion. So we're in this position, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze.
One of the main revelations that Murray gave me was about sound and about relaxing and vibration, letting everything vibrate. What he did is that he had changed my fulcrum from up here, which was where the index finger and the thumb squeeze the stick, okay, and you're doing a lot of this, to the middle finger. So that meant that the middle finger was doing most of the work. There was a lot of upward pressure, or just a slight upward pressure, really brought from the middle finger toward the palm. The index finger and the thumb were really just guides for the stick. There was really almost no pressure at all. So to make accents in a 5-stroke roll, I'm just squeezing with my middle finger. And Murray believed very strongly, he knew quite a bit about physics and about acoustics, that the more everything vibrated, the better the sound would be. So the looser you held the stick, the more sound you'd get out of the instrument. And it was really, I really noticed it in the sound I was getting out of the instrument after about 6 months of studying with him, that I was holding the sticks much more loosely and allowing more sound to come out. You could really hear it or feel it on the jazz ride, because there I was allowing for a lot more bounce and not pulling so hard anymore. The tendency was for jazz drummers was to pull with their back fingers. This, I was letting it ride on this fulcrum and using a lot more rebound. As a result, I started using much heavier sticks to play lighter, because basically it was his idea that the stick could do a lot of the work for you physically if you're able to control rebounds.